testimony. Hey everybody, welcome back to another WBF podcast. I got Jonathan McWerter here with me.
Hi.
Jonathan, how are you?
Good. It's McWerter. So everybody pronounces my last name wrong, and I'm glad you did, because my whole life I've gotten McWerter, anything but my last name right. So
is there an H in there?
It's McWherter.
Oh,
the H is basically silent. So it's like, and everybody in my family says I pronounce my last name wrong, but it's like McWherter. I say it like Mick and a quarter.
McWerter.
See, that's perfect. Yeah, you nailed it.
I was about to ask you right before you click the button, because I always do it. Right before I start, I say the first and last name and double check with the person, and the one time I don't, I mess it up.
I don't even bother telling people. See, tit for tat, I opened this. I should have opened it before we started. I didn't.
So you're the host of the Mostly Focused podcast, and is it mostly film?
Mostly film, yeah. No, Mostly Focused is faith-based. Mostly film is not. Not that it's pagan, for lack of better words. It's just like we just talk about movies and all film, not just Christian film, because most Christian film's terrible, and I'm not going to waste my time reviewing it. So I did watch King of Kings recently. I did. Me and Violet went and saw that, and that was pretty good.
I heard it was good.
I haven't seen it. I mean, it's not Disney, but it's pretty good.
Yeah. So what's it like to do a podcast with a couple of your bros and just sit down and talk about faith or film or whatever? What's it like?
I love it. Now, I'm not used to being on the other side. I'm normally hosting, so this is a unique experience for me. I've only ever done this like once or twice, but I love the avenue, for lack of better words, of podcasting. I know there's the joke, every white guy, you go to Walmart and you see a white guy, like 1 in 5 of them has a podcast. There's so many of them, but I think it's such a unique avenue to share something that's on your heart. And when we started Mostly Focused back before we were doing the YouTube part of it, I mean, we've been doing it for probably 6 years maybe total now. Wow. And Tanner Wilson and Garrett, I've been friends with Tanner since 3rd grade and Garrett since freshman year, so 2007, going on 20 years of friendship with Garrett and nearly 30 years of friendship with Tanner. So it's less of a show and more of us just, we would always have these deep conversations, and just hang out and drink a ski, which I found out. I don't know what a ski is. You've lived in Western Kentucky your whole life?
Paducah, born and raised.
Yeah, see, you should know what a ski is. You know what LA is?
Mm-mm.
I'm gonna bring one to you to church.
Okay.
Next week. Do you drink soda? You and I are both diet guys, but
yeah.
I'll find one of each. I'll bring them to you. I'll change your life. But anyway, so we'd sit down over in LA or ski or whatever, and we'd just be talking like, we should record these.
Oh yeah.
And the problem with me is I'm a big idea guy. I always got like 50 projects I'm wanting to do at any given time, and I need people like JP to get them done. So brought JP on. And then now we have Zach Griffin, who's also a part of it now. The rotation has changed, but Tanner comes and goes. Tanner's big on he doesn't like things being said that he can't go back and then change, just being out in the ether. That's kind of his thing. I just say and forget what I said 10 minutes later, which has caused me some grief in the past. But I try to be more mature across. But that's all it is. I mean, it's just a bunch of friends hanging out. The faith-based part of it is, which I'm sure I'll talk about this later. I think a conversational, like what you do here, what we do in Mostly Focused, just talking about things rather than preaching, teaching, it's a lot more digestible. And it's a lot more digestible for people who don't want to go sit in a church service, don't want to go do the stigma of church because they have church hurt or whatever. I'm not trying to belittle your church hurt if you listen to this. I'm just saying. And so that's the avenue. And the film is just strictly, me and JP are cinephiles, man. We love film, and we just love to talk about it. And we've met some cool people over the years doing it, but Mostly Focused is kind of the bread and butter. We love that one. We're just taking a break and jump into season 2 in a couple weeks. Right
on. Yeah, it is cool to get to sit down and just kind of talk about stuff. That's why I love doing testimonies. Is because if you're going to judge someone for their story, you're probably not going to have an open heart for much of anything. So I think it's a good place for people to start giving God a chance, listening to what people have been through. Why do you even believe in this guy? What is the thing about him? And it's all about the deliverance and what he's done in our life. And even with the tougher topics, as you guys kind of dive into some of those tougher topics, it's cool to just kind of, and I appreciate that Tanner kind of really cares about the weight of what he says, but also you do have to have grace, because we do just say stuff on here, and then I'll listen back sometimes. I'm like, whew, I just said that. And so, be open for correction, have an open heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you go back and listen to whenever our very first episode, I can't remember what it was called now, not the YouTube, all just podcast only, my belief system has changed since then. Like, we did one just on conspiracy theories, me, Garrett, and Tanner did. And we talked about like adrenochrome, where celebrities were drinking the blood of baby, that kind of stuff, and relating it to like Revelation. Do I believe all that stuff 7 years later? No. No. Do I believe that, your Hollywood elite are crazy people? For sure. And there's, the demonic principalities. It's a crazy world out there. I totally get that.
Right.
But, yeah, I just can't be. There's too much else going on in life. You have toddlers, I have toddlers. There's too much. I'm too busy to worry about what I said on a podcast 7 years ago. You can cancel me. I don't care. I know who my people are.
You talk about those conversations, like, dude, the conversations me and my buddy Zach Stinson used to have before like podcasting was even a thing, like the thoughts we came up with would not be shareable. Just the crazy stuff, because like when you're young and you're thinking about the Bible, there's so much your imagination can run with, from the witnesses at the Wailing Wall to whatever, your mind can just run with it. You know what I mean?
I was always fascinated growing up. Like, you have weird stuff like Elijah, or maybe it was Elisha. Literally sickened bears on teenagers to kill him because they basically called him what would be the equivalent of like calling him a baldy. And he got so mad at it, he just rebuked him, and the bear came and mauled these kids to death. Like, the Bible's fascinating.
It is.
And like going back to the original question, like, podcasts are just such a unique way for people to sit and share their thoughts without being in front of. Because if you're not doing it on a podcast, what other YouTube podcasts like we do, like, what other medium are you going to do it? In a pulpit or in front of people or like at a college campus? Like, that's intimidating, and a lot of people aren't able to get their thoughts across, or they feel the pressure of the moment. Intimate settings like this, you're just hanging out with your friends, or you and I are acquaintances, getting to know each other more.
For sure.
But it's still comfortable because I know you offhand. I'm not in front of people. It's easy to have these conversations.
It's the best way to get to know someone, because we haven't really had like a sit down, like, hey, what's your life about? And now we get to. So now you get to know about me. And I get to. It's a cool way to like really connect with people.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's neat about this podcast. You get to, I've learned more about other people's stories from watching some of your episodes, and we briefly did one on ours, the first go round, mostly focused, called Journeys from the Bible Belt, and it was a testimonial based thing. Yeah. We switched to go to topical because we've had some people since be like, you know what, I want you to take that out of my testimony. And I'm like,
yeah.
Honestly, I can't go back and change those anyway because I've got locked out of the old podcast, so we had to change these. Too bad, it's out there. You can put a PA out there, but it's just a super neat avenue to do it.
I've had a couple people ask me to cut, but luckily it wasn't like a lot, because like and now that I have the camera involved, it'd be like way harder for me because I'm like so technically like not gifted. So for me to cut the audio was easy enough, but to cut this, if like we had to cut the camera, I would be lost.
Poor JP, man. Every once in a while, if I have to go back and tell JP, cut this out, I said something out of pocket. And there's been 2 times of all the episodes, I think. And one of them, it was actually Garrett. It wasn't inappropriate. It was just, we try not to name drop people we tell stories about.
Oh, yeah, for
One
sure.
of them was a name drop. Me and Garrett got so tickled, and JP just put he's like, I'm not going through and cutting all the audio, so he put like a fire extinguisher beep over the name. So he just, just to get over it. But yeah, there's been a few times I've had to be like, hey, you know what? In hindsight, maybe cut that out, but very few and far between. But you shouldn't have any of those with me, I don't think.
Oh, well, we'll just, come to it as it comes,
Yeah, I'll just apologize.
Yeah, we'll just apologize. PG for the most part.
Yeah.
So you were a pastor's kid growing up, and I was wondering, what were some of the good, bad, and ugly parts of being a pastor's kid?
So my dad is still a pastor. He's been pastoring at the same church for this is year 36.
Wow.
Which is, if you know anything about ministry, which you've grown up around the church and stuff. So, being at one church for 10 years is an accomplishment. 36 is unheard of. So my mom and my dad are absolute beacons of faith, consistency, faithfulness. Like, they're obviously I'm biased, but I try to take that out. Like, they are the best people I know, and some of the best, my dad, best minister I know. My mom is not the prototypical preacher's wife. She's like me. I love to minister, but my mom she's just, no, not her thing. But she's supportive. But so growing up, all I've ever known was church. And my dad's parents, they both since passed, but they were both pastors, Assemblies of God. My dad's a non-denominational, which is just a less scary way of saying Pentecostal, kind of way. Now, granted, Faith Center plus my dad's church is Abundant Life Worship Center. He's still there. Are still Pentecostal, but it's including just from what I know about John and, watching my dad's church, a lot of the things have changed of how Pentecostals interacted with. But growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, the safety was off when it came to like Pentecostal stuff. So growing up,
it's still off in some places.
Yeah, it still is. I lived in the parsonage too. So, it's like the church that's right on the property of the house or on the property of the church.
Yeah.
So I was literally a church rat. So basically I popped out the womb, I was in the church, and that was super awesome. But I'm going to jump into one of the bad just because my mind is one of those things. If I don't say it now,
just go for it.
I will not get back to it. It has given me, and this is no fault of my parents, this is a me thing. It, for a long time, and I think I still wrestle with it, hurt my view of the sanctity of the church building. Not that the church building is an elevated place in and of itself. It's the people, the presence, the fellowship that set it apart. But it just became a place that, me and my friends they come over, we had a basketball, we go play ball and then go to the church and go to the Coke machine and put something up on the big TV, play, every once in a while we played Halo on the big projector screen. It was just a place to hang out, a huge space. I drum, so the drum set was always available to me. Like one of my idols, still one of the best drummers, Scotty Adams, phenom. He kind of threw me in the water teaching me how to play the drums. He said, I want you to play this. He showed me after church on a Sunday night, and if you don't know how to play this by next week, I'm done teaching you. So he'd show me a lick, and I had to learn it. So I lived doing that kind of stuff. But with that, it wasn't a holy place for me. It was a place that I got to hang out. It was a place I felt comfortable in, but not a place I could grow in. It was just a place that felt comfortable. Not to say I didn't ever have those moments. I had genuine encounters with Christ and stuff. But that's one of the negatives, just because I needed to circle there, because it was on my head. But, I don't have a lot of, trauma from the church, I don't think. I don't have trauma from being a preacher's kid. I know one of the burning questions a lot of people ask, and I've gotten asked a lot, is why am I not there anymore? And part of it is, and the biggest part of it is expectations. It's, they run about 100 or so consistently, which is, for Calvert City, not a bad sized church. But there's always this subliminal pressure for me to serve everything all the time. And I don't remember the last time I sat in a service. I was always the drummer by choice, my choice. But I never got to worship and sit in there. So it's just there was all this and all these expectations. I never had my own identity in a church that was mine. Everything was, and it's not, my parents never put that on me. It's just something I felt the pressure for. So those are the bads, the two. But the good way outweigh it. Seeing my parents, they are two of the most God-fearing, consistent people I've ever met in my life. They deserve all the crowns in heaven. I know they'll throw them down, but they deserve it all. I've never seen them waver. They love each other. They love me and my little sister. They served faithfully in the ups and downs. Being a preacher is no easy task. I've seen them be betrayed, backstabbed. I've seen people leave. I've seen people come back. You see it all. And my parents never wavered. They loved, they've led, they've nurtured. And that's the reason I am where I am today. I'll talk about it, I'm sure, later, but I spent years apart from God in my teenage and early college years. And my parents, that foundation they planted in me, and seeing it in the church and seeing the people of the church, that, obviously Jesus, not taking the God part out of it, but that all worked together to bring me back home. So overall, it's good. Those are just a couple of the negatives, but the good, just seeing the faithfulness of my parents, the steadfastness of their faith, the fellowship of the community. It's invaluable. Yeah,
man. Same for me and my parents. They're the most faithful people I know. I didn't have the spotlight that a normal pastor's kid would have, because we've been going to Faith Center basically since the very
y'all were OGs, right?
OGs. Yeah. Before the sanctuary of the Metal Cathedral was even finished, we were going to church there. So, just their faith alone and their prayers did numbers of work for me, because I also had a season of going astray and being rebellious and just wanting to do the way of the world.
Yeah.
And I just know it was because of the foundation of going to church multiple times a week, going to conference after conference after conference.
Did you go to Ramp?
I went to Ramp with the kids last time, yeah.
Was that your first time?
Second. I went the first time, and then I went this last time.
But you didn't go in youth group and stuff?
No, I didn't go to Ramp as a kid. No, we went to a pastor's conference that you don't really love. I've heard you talk about Brother Copeland. We used to
Kenneth
go.
Copeland?
Yes, we used to go down to Fort Worth, Texas, and do the
Okay.
Believers Conference. And I don't know about Copeland, but I do know about a couple of the guys I do really respect. Keith Moore, I talk
Yeah,
about him on the podcast. He's pretty legit. He's very word driven. I love the way he teaches. Don't listen to Copeland, so I can't.
Well, in Copeland, I know where I don't like Copeland. It's not that I dislike the guy. His earlier stuff was fine. If you go back and listen to it through hindsight, it's like he was getting a little out there. He's just as he's gotten older, he just seems like he may be senile. He needs to get out of the pulpit. But
He is getting old up there.
he's getting up there. He's just like I said, and this is part of what we touched on earlier. Those 80s, 90s, 2000s charismatic movement are a lot different than what they are now. And I think a lot of it in hindsight was not to say it wasn't genuine, but over dramatized maybe. And I think Copeland was a key. Him and Rod Parsley, that whole group of people ushered that.
They were very big. Like I went to the Faith Kids. They had like their own I can't even remember what, Super Kid Academy.
Oh yeah, they had a whole. His daughter had a show. So.
Yeah, they had the whole nine. Yeah. But it was spirit. It was like spirit driven. Not quite as ramped up as Ramp, but it was definitely like I was around that kind of stuff a lot. So no, I didn't get to. Did you do the Ramp?
Yeah. Me and JP, funny small world. We were both in. I had no clue who JP was, obviously. But we were both at the same one where they had us take off our shoes and socks and swing them in the air.
Nice.
I have not good feelings of Ramp. I've been telling Garrett forever, quit taking the kids to Ramp. I think...
the third time was the charm, and I think they're going to do their own thing. So
I think that's so much healthier. I think this isn't an anti-Ramp. I could go on a deep dive on why I don't like Ramp. I won't. I'll spare you that.
I love the worship. In certain aspects of the freedom of, I love the simplicity of how they do worship, where they kind of sing like a couple lines and then they'll do like a chorus of a big song and then they'll kind of like go into another couple lines, and so there was like a simplicity to it. But I'm honestly struggling with the spiritual stuff right now, like speaking in tongues and stuff. So when you're in an atmosphere like that, you can kind of feel like super disconnected. And I was just trying to be there for the kids as much as possible, and like ignore how I felt, because that's kind of where I feel like, as being someone who's going to church my whole life, I can get very self-aware in church atmospheres. I don't know. Do you struggle with that?
Well, yes. I don't want to derail the podcast, but I want to circle back on the speaking in tongues thing. Have you always been? I'm assuming, with being said, you've always been like in a spirit-filled, charismatic household.
Yeah.
So have you ever spoken in tongues? Ever?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is part of my issue with Ramp. I feel like a lot of what Ramp does, and this is all, God can use a donkey to speak his word, right? So who am I to say that Ramp is dangerous and unhealthy? I'm just me. It's an opinion. I could be wrong. I just, in hindsight, and then go into it post salvation as a chaperone, which, I mean, I got saved as a kid, like probably 5, 6, but I consider my salvation January 2012, like January 17th or something, 2012. So going after that, in that point in my life, is just like, you know what? I think there's an overemphasis on the outward obvious gifts. It could be like tongues, the prophetic. Yeah. And the prophetic doesn't have to be, and tongues doesn't have to be an outward show. But growing up at Ramp, growing up in the charismatic church, it seems like it was. Like, how did you know you were a spirit-filled, born-again believer? You spoke in tongues. You prophesied over people. You went to the altar and got slain in the spirit, and just laid there for the whole service. I have a problem with all of that now. Not that I don't believe it. I've spoken in tongues. I occasionally still speak in tongues. But it's not typically a public forum. Not to say there's not a time and a place for that. I still struggle with that, even at Faith Center. I mean, not taking shots, but I'm very honest. If John came in here and asked me himself, I would still say it,
Yeah.
I still struggle sometimes with the open forum tongues. Not from a biblical perspective. I totally get where it's coming from.
Yeah.
I just still struggle with the intentionality of it, I think, maybe. But my question for you is, you say you thought you spoken in tongues, and when you went to Ramp, why? Because you don't, the way I interpret Scripture, it doesn't mean, you have to speak in tongues to prove that you're spirit-filled. Why is that something you are pursuing, want, or feel like Ramp was kind of bringing up those feelings for you?
It's been on my mind a lot, even before we left. It's been something I've been talking about on the podcast a lot is fellowship with the Holy Spirit. I do believe part of that is speaking in tongues, pushing yourself past what your mind can do into a spiritual. My dad and my mom are like very like my dad and mom. I can remember growing up and hearing them through the floor. I mean, they speak in tongues.
Yeah.
My mom sees an ambulance and there's going to be some tongues coming out. So like okay, I have a couple of different people giving me advice, and I have a couple of different people. So I meet with Pastor Jeff.
Yeah.
And he's a little bit more like, I do it, but it's not like my drive. And my dad is like, I want to do it basically every day. He feels like it's like it unleashes more power. He has this old school way of looking at Acts. You see people, they get saved, they get baptized, they get filled with the Holy Spirit, and almost immediately all of them in the stories of Acts speak in tongues. So he's very like, tongues is like very important. And I tend to believe that it's important in a private setting. Totally I do love how John does handle it if it does happen in Faith Center's atmosphere. He explains what he's going to do. I don't think there's ever been a time where there wasn't at least him interpreting it himself. So, at ramp, sometimes I'll just be praying over the microphone and then just in tongues immediately. And so and I've seen that all my life, just people just go for it, and so I don't know. I just feel like in my life, I go through ups and downs, discouragement and encouragement. And I do think there's this blockage in me with this spiritual aspect of, and the Bible tells us to walk in the Spirit, not in the flesh. And then it's like, I almost walk in the flesh more because I'm so focused on walking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'm totally in more of that camp. Like the way when I interpret the scripture, which everybody interprets scripture just a little bit different. I totally get that. And I think that's the beauty of scripture. Yeah. As long as you're not like a Rob Bell kind of person, then whatever. But to me, the way I read it and the way I at least apply it to my life, it's when the Holy Spirit intercedes on your behalf, or like when the Spirit groans, those inner groanings. Yeah, it's when I'm praying, I don't know what else to say, or sometimes I'm out of joy. I'll just be praying, I'm so thankful for something, and then tongues will just spring up briefly. It's not ever like a long-term thing that throws off my prayer life, or sometimes when I'm so broken, or just completely drained or whatever, I'll be not know what to say. I just don't want to pray, and I'll just start speaking in tongues. And it's not something I try to get self-conscious about. It's not something I'm just sitting here going like, because anybody can rattle off anybody can do that. I'm not speaking in tongues right now, but if I was in a church and I started doing that, the person next to me would be like, yo, that dude's filled with the Holy Spirit. You know what I mean? If you've grown up in a church, you can mimic tongues best you can. So I've really tried to tune my mind. And that's one of the negative parts about growing up in a church is I've seen it abused. I've seen it misused. I've seen it used well. Like my dad, for instance, and some of the elders, and how John does it is, healthy. I've also seen it misused, and it does put a warp in your head. And like going back to ramp, I think a lot of it's a spiritual manipulation of a setting, a placement, and how they use it. So I'm very weary of that, and I'm very weary with youth with that. I want them to pursue it, but I want it to be in a healthy way. I just, me and Garrett talk about it sometimes. It's just kind of hard to know that because each kid's different.
You don't know what they're thinking.
And I don't ever want to turn anybody off to it because I think it's powerful. Yeah. I mean, there's times in my life. I remember once I was at a conference Jensen Franklin was opening or hosting, and he was saying, there's obviously there's an arena in here, but there's one person in here. You've grown up in the church. There's a gift of tongues you've struggled with, and it's time for you to release it. He said, I'm sure there's more, but there's one person. I knew he was talking to me, dead on. Knew it. So he said, I want you to close your eyes. I want you to worship. And we did. And then he said, later on, I'm going to come in. When I count to 3, it's going to come out. So I was moved on. I forgot about it. And then he counted to 3 randomly in one of the worship songs. And I'm talking, I had tears running down my face. I spoke in tongues, what felt like 30 seconds, but apparently I did it for like 5-10 minutes straight. Wow. I had no clue. I completely lost track of time. Mm-hmm. And I felt so refreshed, like a burden weight was lifted off my shoulders. Mm. There was something I needed healed of, something I needed to let go of. And I didn't know how or what to say. I fully believe that the Holy Spirit did that through me, for me. So I'm not against that audible part of it either. I'm learning. I'm still maneuvering my way through my charismatic wave 2.0. I never want to turn anybody off from it, but I'm a ramp and some of those places in specific. I just feel like they prey on emotions, music. I come manipulative to me. So that's.
Yeah, the worship atmosphere seems to be the easiest for kids to enter into a different level. And there were some kids who I was honestly like, I didn't know if they'd ever get saved.
Yeah.
Who got saved. So
That's amazing.
there were a couple of like really cool, like, so to steel man it just a little bit, I did see some change in some kids that I was beginning to like lose hope for.
Right.
And Garrett really said something powerful on the bus. He said, we have not stopped praying for you, talking to this one boy specifically. And I was like, wow, that's what I should have been doing this whole time.
Right.
Rather than get in my flesh and be like frustrated. Because I'm more of like the old school, like the kids should be paying attention and not, you know, a little talking's fine, but like some of these kids get rowdy, dude. I'm like, I want to like smack them upside the head. Yeah. And so I try to be as patient as possible, but I do struggle with that. And so to see him specifically get saved, I was like, all right.
Well, and that's the thing with Ramp, any conference, whether you faith center host one, the biggest thing is you can go have a genuine encounter with Christ wherever it is. I may not get anything out of it, but someone else may, and that's fantastic. You know, the biggest thing is then getting home and not trying to replicate, not trying to expect the same thing every single day.
Yeah,
I think that's where a lot of people, have the conference hangover. A lot of people come back, they're on fire for God, but then they realize, oh, I'm back home. I can't replicate this, and then they go back right to where they were, if not worse. I've seen that happen 1,000 times.
Yeah.
The biggest thing now is when I see that kind of stuff, I think it's very important to have that follow-up, to keep that fresh on people's minds and to develop that, discipleship, whether it be youth pastoring, college, whatever kind of conference it is, marital conferences, to continue to have that community, that accountability, that discipleship that keeps it on the forefront of your mind. Because you can't replicate an experience. If that's what you're doing, you got saved on an experience, not an encounter. And I think that's very important to put that on the front of your mind when you go to those kind of things.
I think that's something from our examples that we can really pull from, and I try to pull from it as much as possible with these kids. Is like, I lived this experience. Mm-hmm. I've done these. Like, this will fade and fleet if you're not. And like, so, and that Pastor Garrett's the best guy for the job to keep it on the front of their mind, because he's so filled right now with like the love of God, and he loves these kids, and so he really is like the perfect guy at the perfect moment because of his discipline, because of his hours of reading that he does. You can just tell, man, like every time he teaches on Sunday, when he gets a chance to teach, it's better and better and better. Like you can just see him growing into this pastor. And as a friend, for us, it's like really cool to just get to be a part of it.
It's wild, man. He talk about him spending hours reading. He makes me so mad. He texts me like at 4. We have a group message. He texts me every morning at 4ish in the morning. I'm like, I hear it. I'm like, Garrett, why? Just don't text me at 4 a.m. I don't care what the Lord's put on your heart. Send it to me at 8 a.m. I don't want it right now.
Yeah.
But no, it's, I was smiling when you were talking about Garrett. It's just, it's hard not to get emotional, man. Like, me and Garrett were in the trenches together, man. Like, drinking drugs, and it's just, I got saved well before he did. Mm-hmm. And I used to hold guilt for people like Garrett in my life, because I'm sure I'll share my testimony more later, but like, I feel like I brought people like that into the drug world and into the party world. It's like I got saved, and these other people are still languishing away, and it's just like, I'm so proud of Garrett, man. He's just truly a testimony, Paul Damascus Road kind of thing. It's really amazing what he's done. I mean, he's still a goober. He's still, a lovable idiot. I love him, and I say that completely out of love. Every time anybody calls him Pastor Garrett and they're dead serious, I'm like,
I do it on here out of respect, but I call him Garrett. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but when I'm on here, I try to.
I joked with him the other day. We go out every Friday with our daughters, me and him, and do a breakfast or lunch or whatever. Mm-hmm. We were at the bounce house this last week before last. He was in Mexico this last one. I was like, if I ever serve in the church, I don't think I'm gonna call you Pastor Garrett. I call John, Jeff. Yeah. Maybe that's the preacher's kid in me. It was either brother. I never called people pastor. It was always brother. So maybe I just give him a Hulk Hogan. Brother John, Brother Garrett. And Garrett's got the best Hulk Hogan, though, so I had to do it for you. But anyway, sorry. We got derailed on Ramp.
No, it's all good. Let's dive into your testimony then. So let's dive into like when you started having some doubt because you were saved. So, I was saved at like 4 or 5, something crazy. And then like resaved when I was 10 because I didn't know if I got saved the first time. So I have a very similar story in that. So when did the world start to creep in?
So I went to, and I know you know this from stuff we talked off pod, I went to Christian Fellowship private school too. So I was church kid and I went to private school. I was 365 days in a Christian atmosphere, Mm-hmm. I was as church could get. And I don't have any regrets on that. I made some of the best friendships of my life, still have them today. I think my when I went through Discovery, John was talking about how God might use my struggles, my past cynicism toward the church to help bring healing to others. Now, granted, I still have some cynicism I am working through. I'm not sure how long. It's like every time I think I get over one, I come across another. But anyway, I digress. But growing up, I was completely insulated. Church, school, everything Christian. My whole sphere was Christian. And I loved it, man. It was awesome. It wasn't until 8th grade year. I was homeschooled that year, but still played ball at Christian Fellowship. Basketball. It's the only sport I'm halfway decent at. That all my friends were transferring to public schools. And I was like, you know what? And at that time, my class, if I would have stayed, was like 8 people. And I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. All my friends have moved. I don't want to do this. So I went to Marshall County High School. I had a huge afro. Dude, it was insane. I got to show you after the podcast. I still have my freshman ID. It's in 2 pieces, and my hair's on both. It's crazy. And Garrett used to have really long blonde hair, too. We were picture made in heaven. But anyway, I get to the high school, and it's just like very prototypical thing, man. Like took me like 2 weeks to get introduced into alcohol. I was literally my first 2 weeks of public school.
Wow.
I broke into somebody's basement in a subdivision, stole all their alcohol with 3 or 4 guys, and went back to the house and got drunk. 2 weeks out of my Christian bubble.
Yeah.
Which, going back on it, when I got saved as a kid, it's not like I'm sitting there reading the Bible every morning when I wake up, doing devotions as a child.
Right.
You do what you can, and there's that whole age of innocence thing. But then, like, I was in church so much, I felt like that was my devotion. And it was genuine to me. I didn't feel like I was not building a relationship with God. I could, tell you the whole Bible from, Genesis to Revelation. Because, literally, you got trips to Dairy Queen if you could recite, like, a whole book of the Bible. It's just incentivize. You incentivize me with ice cream, I'm going to know. An accelerated reader. Did y'all do accelerated reader at school?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, most people were reading like Hardy Boys. I was reading Leviticus, so you get more points. And I knew the Bible, so I thought, but it was never for my own growth. It was for other things. I always, from a young age, I struggled with pride and arrogance. That's still my biggest vice to this day. Completely open about it. How do I overcome it? I don't know. I'm still working on it. I know the answers to it. I know the scripture. I get it. That's still my vice. Probably always will be my thorn in my side, for lack of better words. But so I get to high school, and I didn't have a foundation, man. I knew the foundation. I knew what I should be doing, what I should be saying. But for so many years, I just didn't have that to build upon. So when I got into a new environment outside of my Christian bubble, I just completely caved into a totally different, like, you know what? This didn't work for me. I want to go live a little bit. So
in that moment, when your buddies are trying to convince you to break into someone's house, were you like scared? Was there's a sense of like, I shouldn't do this? Or were you kind of like ready to do something because you'd never done something before?
A part of me died. Not that night. My parents talk about this regularly since I've been an adult and stuff, that I changed. And I can look back at it now. I don't know if it was losing all my friends to a different school. Like Tanner Wilson's like my best friend still to this day, but there was a few years span after he left Christian Fellowship that he was like athlete, straight, narrow, like not like Christian, just like didn't party, didn't do anything. We still went to the same church. We were kind of at odds, and all my other friends were at different schools, so I was making new friends too. And I think I killed a part of myself. I genuinely do. It took me just a few years ago to realize that, like, who I was all the way up to a certain point, I killed to be somebody else. I'm not saying that's a overall bad thing, but some parts I do think were bad. Not like what I did. I'm saying like the parts I killed off, I think were probably, I wish I didn't do that. I don't know how to get those back. But part of me died, and so I didn't. I just went full head. Like, I had no regrets. I just was terrible. I was a terrible person. I just immediately, I could just flipped. And that's how, sometimes I wonder, was I ever really saved? Did I just do the semblance of it and grow up that way? I don't know, because I would say I had genuine encounters with Christ prior to that as a middle schooler or whatever. But anyway, so I drugs, alcohol, sex. I mean, that was my 2006 or 2012. I mean, that's all it was. And I was a terrible person. I was mean. I was manipulative. I lied. I mean, I was terrible. I was terrible to my parents. Terrible to everybody. I was terrible. But I still went to church. I still lectured. Like, I loved back then to get high and talk about Jesus.
Oh yeah,
Like it's my favorite thing. I was like, you get high, I'm gonna debate you on why Jesus is awesome. But I was the worst witness ever.
Yeah,
And when I say drugs, I always call them Garrett drugs. Thankfully, meth and heroin weren't players back then.
Right,
Very thankful for that.
Yeah.
It was like pot, pills, cocaine, that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
Not good stuff. Don't do those. But
right.
Yeah, I wasn't. Meth and heroin weren't available to, or else I would have. Doing those, I'm sure too. But that was my whole. There's not much to dwell on there. It's just what it was. So I was just in a daze for stupor for years. It's a miracle I graduated.
Yeah.
High school and all that stuff. So when I graduated, I moved to Murray into an apartment complex with a few of my best friends, and I'd done so much partying. I was like ready to go to bed by like 7 or 8 o'clock at that point. Everybody was like starting, and we were like, oh, we've done this for 4 or 5 years. Like, we want to go to bed. So that's when I turned more to drugs, pills, weed, just more of a laid back to me, more of a shrooms, laid back kind of thing, not getting drunk and partying all the time. And in that me and Tanner reconnected. I hung out a lot more with Garrett at that point because the college thing was, he was in a lot more. And I remember there was one pivotal moment. We were at Tanner's house. And I'm not trying to glamorize drugs. I don't ever want to come across that.
No,
I don't regret my past in a lot of ways because it made me who I am today. I think God repurposed and retooled my mistakes to help others. Now, this part of my testimony is not really, I consider my testimony anymore because I'm so far removed from that lifestyle, but I can relate to somebody. But anyway, me and Tanner and Garrett were up really late one night smoking the weed.
Yeah,
the weed. And we were just outside looking up at the stars. I don't remember what time it was. We talked forever about God and just there's more to life than what we're doing right now. It was a very pivotal conversation. I didn't realize it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
About a week or two later, I was on a train. I went and visited my girlfriend and went to Michigan State. And we broke up like 2 days of me being down there. So I got on a train ride home, straight back. And it was like 2 a.m. I'd put my headphones on my old iPod, the little dial and stuff, and put it on shuffle. I only had a handful of Christian songs on there. I was like, I still listen to a lot of, I have secular music tattoos on my arm. I still listen to some secular music, but I was listening to like bad, like Lil Wayne, Ace Hood, all that kind of stuff.
There's levels to it.
Yeah, there's levels to it. So I saw a song by Thousand Foot Crutch, which I like Thousand Foot Crutch, Christian band, called Already Home. Came on my shuffle. And the chorus is like, I'm on my knees. It's all about coming home and repenting, and I've made a mess of my life. You can make me whole. I'm in between 2 random strangers in the middle of the night. It's like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm weeping. The Holy Spirit came upon me in a way I've maybe only felt 2 or 3 other times in my life. And I knew what it was. I just knew what it was. And I was just sobbing, weeping to this song. And I was like, I don't know if it was out loud because I was so lost in that moment. But I remember like, Lord, I know this is you. I am so sorry the mess I've made in my life. Please forgive me from this day on. My life is yours. Please just dwell within me. Let your Holy Spirit rise up in me once again. Something similar to that. So I finished the song, dried up, and I went to go grab something out of my duffel bag or whatever. Yeah. And my dad, I guess it was him because I didn't put it in there, put in a New Testament Message Bible. Just it was in my bag. I was like, huh. So I opened it, and the verse that it opened to was in 1 Peter 4, 3 through 5. And this is the first thing I Bible rouletted to. You've already put in your time in that God, this is the Message translation. You've already put in your time in that God-ignorant way of life, partying night after night, a drunken and prolific life. Now it's time to be done with it for good. Of course, your old friends don't understand why you don't join in with the old gang anymore, but you don't have to give an account to them. They're the ones who will be called on the carpet and before God himself. First thing I read, post giving my life to the Lord. Like, if that wasn't the most relevant, on-point thing I needed to hear, like, verbatim. To make matters even more interesting, about an hour later, I hadn't told anybody because it's the middle of the night. Tanner texts me. He's like, this novel's like, hey, man, just paraphrasing. You're not going to believe this. I know you're not going to understand. I totally get it if you're not on the same page, but I just gave my life to the Lord. Middle of the night. I was like, you're not going to believe this. I did too. Or like, whoa, no way, bro. Tried to reach out to Garrett. He was snorting meth off the back of an elephant or something. I'm just kidding. I don't even know if you snort meth. I don't know. Just kidding. Garrett was in college, I think. I'm joking. Anyway, so me and Tanner...
Garrett, I'm sorry.
He's used to it. Tanner and I decided from that day on, we met the next day And I had unfettered access to the church. Like, we're just going to live here. So we kind of swore off women completely. Not like in a sexual way, just in general. Like, we're not going to pursue a relationship with anybody. Yeah. We just wanted to grow with God and grow as accountability partners, brotherhood. So I would say 4 or 5 nights out of the week, we would just spend hours at the church in the evening, just praying together, reading the Bible together. We made a Christian rap album together. So bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's terrible. Tanner hates it when I even bring it up, but sorry. Love you. So for 6 months, we didn't pursue any women. We just served at the church, served with the youth. We launched a college ministry called Whatever Ministries based on Philippians 4:8. Dwell on whatever is pure, whatever is noble. That one. On Monday nights, we did that for a few years. And we were really successful with that. And that's where my pride kicked in. I got a little too big for my britches there. God has called me to ministry. I know that. That's been the calling on my life since a young age. Maybe that's why I've ran so hard from all church things for so long. So to this day, I've been at Faith Center for almost 2 years now. And my whole background is ministry, leading ministries. I've preached. I went to college and got a degree in ministerial leadership with a minor in Christian counseling and theology. Like, that is my life. I love that, but I still run from it now. And I'll talk about what I consider my testimony in a second. But like, at that time, I was so zealous, maybe overzealous. We had a one night at Whatever Ministries where we had everybody bring their DVDs, CDs, and we burned them all.
Oh yeah.
We did a Let It Burn night. Since then, I bought a lot of them back. So like, maybe it was a little overzealous. I didn't have to burn super bad, The Hangover. There's no redeeming qualities. Those aren't good Christian movies.
No.
But I do find them funny. Anyway, and then the How I Met My Wife is just a fun little plug. Right at the end of the 6 months, I was at Disney World, and my wife messaged me on Facebook. Oh, I love Disney, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I told my dad and Tanner, who's on that trip, I'm going to marry this girl. 6 months is up. Sure enough, I told her I loved her like 2 weeks in. And I was like, I'm going to marry you. And she was like, I don't know if I want to date you anymore. She did. Now we've been married for 10 and a half years. So,
my wife tried to ghost me before we started dating. She's like, oh.
Well, it's us holy guys, man. It's like God's got to put us through some suffering.
Yeah.
Keep us on our toes. But, that's my big testimony nutshell.
Yeah. You're answering like all my questions. That's the cool thing.
Good.
I got like 6 questions. Maybe
that's the podcast host.
Yeah, that's just the Holy Spirit in the room. I'll ask this question because I still think it's kind of relevant to that kind of stuff. Is like, for me, a lot of that like rings true with my testimony. A little bit backwards with I was smoking. I was just huge piehead, and then got that taken away from me because I was driving around dirty all the time and got popped with paraphernalia and possession. So
Did you have to go to jail?
I had to pee in a cup for 6 months. No, the cop was like pretty cool after. He wasn't cool, and then he was cool after. You know what I mean? Like, he pulled me out of my car meanly, but I was like super I was not the guy that was going to be like, oh, I'm standing up for the police. So he handcuffed me, sat me on the curb, found all my stuff, and then I shook his hand, and he let me go. But anyways, I had to pee.
Did he confiscate it?
Oh, he took it all, yeah.
That's why he let you go?
He couldn't find... I had like a one-hitter in my like door of my car, and he had to go back 3 different times to find it, because I was like, dude, you didn't get it all. Like, I was like, don't leave anything. Like, get it all. And so I had to go to court, and then basically they gave me the option to do the diversion program. So I had to pee in a cup for 6 months.
It's literally a miracle. By the grace of God, I never got arrested.
Yeah, dude. I literally
did some stupid stuff.
Like, it was my identity. Like, so I was just not a confident kid, and like that gave me confidence. I just wanted to get high all the time. So on the way to work, in the parking lot, I was smoking in my car literally like every moment I could. So it was bound to happen. I was doing it as stupidly as possible.
Yeah.
And what I didn't realize was I was building up like an addictive tendency in my life. Mm-hmm. And so then I turned to alcohol because I couldn't smoke for 6 months. I was still smoking a little bit, but you got to be real careful with those drug tests.
Yeah.
And that's whenever I just went full bore alcoholic, and I didn't realize it until quite a bit in. You're 22. That's what people do. They drink. Mm-hmm. But my question is, like, what was a lie that you believed about yourself back then that now Jesus has like shined light and truth into your life?
It's the same thing then that I still struggle with now. It's just disqualification. Like, I grew up knowing better. Yeah. I grew up knowing that all those things were bad. They weren't taboo. I knew about them. You know, I've seen my dad counsel people. I've seen it. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was always like, you know better than this. God can't use you. You did what you knew you weren't supposed to do. You know, but you still kept doing it. And that's doubly true now because since I've become a Christian in 2012, you know, the sins I've committed now feel even worse than what I committed, you know, in 2006 to 2012 because...
Are you like hyper aware?
Hyper aware, yes.
Yeah,
like,
I struggle with that.
You know, and my testimony now isn't those things that are part of it. You know, now it's like, you know, I've made some mistakes since I've been a Christian, as a married man, as a friend. You know, I've betrayed my friends, I've betrayed my family as a Christian, an outspoken Christian. You know, I've abused the name of God for selfish gain. I've you know, part of my career, and Garrett worked for me, he could attest to this. You know, I was really good at management, still am, but I had to get out of it, man, because I could turn into a different person.
Yeah.
I lied, I cheated, I stole, I manipulated, all as a Christian. And like, I'd be posting Bible verses right on the back thing or going to, you know, teach something the next day. You know, it's just about Jesus. Or if I was I got myself in a bind, I would use Jesus to get out of it. Like, you know, I've been really thinking the Lord just telling me, and it was all just completely BS, you know? That's my testimony now, is how I've tried to overcome those things. Me and my wife almost got divorced a few years back, all because of my ignorance, because of my selfishness, because of my, you know, just the issues that I had. And, you know, we went to therapy, and I had anger issues. I had a lot of issues, man. You know, God freed me. I have not struggled with alcohol. I've not struggled with drugs at all since I've been saved. That was like a miraculous done thing. But lust, that's still a temptation for me. Right. Anger, that's still a temptation for me. Arrogance and pride, forever and always, are going to be a temptation for me. I know what they are. I know what my triggers are. But that spirit of disqualification has lingered from then and is magnified by 1,000 now. And that's part of the reason I haven't really served at Faith Center, is because I just have an overwhelming, crushing fear or feeling of disqualification and inadequacy. Not from like, I can't do it. I know I can do it. That's not the problem. It's I don't deserve to be doing it. And I know that's not the case. I get it, that God heals, God restores, God redeems. I just can't get past it.
Let me tell you a quick testimony of what happened to me. My best friend died, and it was a couple years ago, and I was still full on drinking, and there was a baptism coming up, and Lauren asked me if I would baptize with my dad. He thought it'd be cool to have the father-son, and at first I was like, yeah, and I was going to another great friend of mine. He is having his bachelor party in Missouri. We're going to the lakes and stuff, and then I get the call on the drive that Zach Stenson died. So I'm like, just like, couldn't even enjoy the time, but I'm still living the life I was living, drinking. And John came up to me because I told Lauren, like, the next Sunday I came back, I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to. I'm using Zach as my excuse, but really there was probably a bunch of excuses I could have used. Like, I just don't feel right about it. And John came up to me at his funeral and he was like, hey man, you should do the baptism. And I was like, John, like, I'm not like right. Like, I'm not right. And he was like, whatever you're doing right now, you need to work on it, but you do this one in faith. And I was like, wow. And like, I'll never forget that. Like, I remember then I even like had 8 months of sobriety, and then I relapsed. And so I had a couple months of falling off the wagon. I'm doing this podcast, man. I'm up there on the worship team. I had to tell Cheryl and I had to tell everybody, like, look, this happened. And like, I'm on here talking about God. I want to teach people and fill people up with the Lord. And like, I was still struggling with that. So I know that disqualification feeling, and I think it still haunts me too. But like, God has called you to serve somewhere, and it might be something small. Like, I didn't want to serve with the youth. That was kind of what I remember going through Discovery, and John was like, well, you kind of said you're passionate about young people. I'm talking about like 20-something-year-olds, but it's what they needed. They needed it. They had a need, and I filled that need. And now that, because of that, I got to meet Garrett and got to know him on a better. I would have never got to know Garrett probably the way I do now if I didn't serve with the youth. That was God. Yeah. I'm playing music more than I ever did, because I was one of those guys who would just pick up my guitar once a month and strum it.
Like a campfire girl.
Yeah, dude. Like a G, C, and D, like perfection. I can strum and finger pick, all that good stuff. Yeah. Now it's like my worship and my life has changed. And I still struggle, man. I just talked about a couple weeks ago of this feeling of discouragement, where I kind of like, it's hard to get in here and do these sometimes, where I'm just by myself and like I get in my head. Yeah. But you know, I think it's okay to acknowledge your faults and your wrongs, but kind of like remind yourself. I have to remind this is me preaching to myself. Is like, who am I?
Right.
With like without Christ, I'm nothing.
Right.
And so it's all Him, right?
Yeah, it's I have my moments where I preach myself to that too. It's just like it's so hard. I mean, it's just so. I mean, you've lived it. It's so much easier said than done. And I'll go through moments like at the faith conference, man. Like each day of that conference, something broke off of me until that Sunday. I don't know if you remember it, dude. I was weeping like I've never wept in my life. Garrett literally ran. I guess he was watching me. Ran from the altar. He was up there all the way back to me because he saw me just break. And it was a good break. Yeah. Like, and it was in that moment I needed that. That was God affirming to me, I see you. I know it's what it was. Like, you were healed. You were free. Like, I've forgiven you. Forgive yourself. Like, this is that affirmation. I know what it was. And then I lived that way for a while. And then guess what? Boom, I make the same mistake I just got freed of. And it's just like, at how many times, my mind's always like tempted to go back to like, how many times have I just like shot myself in the foot like I can't be redeemed anymore? And I know that's not the case, but you're talking about my struggle. That's always my struggle. For as cocky and arrogant, prideful as I can be, I have such a defeatist attitude about my sins, about my past, and not my party past, like since salvation past.
Every sin I commit reminds me of my relapse. It's the same feeling I had whenever I relapsed from alcohol. You're going to continue to do this the rest of your life. You're never going to be able to beat this. Yep. So I know exactly. Yeah,
it's like your Goliaths are always there, and then it's like, say I talked to Garrett about this the other day. It's like, say I get up and 4 years from now I'm doing some sort of like forward facing ministry where people see me. It's like, what if my demons come to roost then? Like, what if I don't want to face those things publicly? You've talked to your friends, you've talked to your family, you've gotten forgiven, you've gone to the Lord, but then but you don't want the whole world to know some mistake you made, whatever it may be. It's just like, I don't want that either. I don't want that for, friends, family. It's just like, it's tough, man. It's tough. So we talk about my biggest issue. That's my biggest issue. How I overcome it. I don't know. Day by day.
You got 50 plans going on in your head. Have you thought through what ministry would look like for you?
So when I did whatever ministries, I know God's calling on my life has been, continues to be, when I continue to when I'm in a good space and God's like, I'm allowing, maybe I'm using the bad phrasing here. I'm allowing God to work through me, because you can shut God out, what I mean? But God can also be like, hey, I'm working through you anyway. But so I'm using that as the word. I'm allowing God to work through me. Yeah. But I still feel that call to preach. Mm-hmm. That is my gifting, is communicating, speaking, relating, sharing God's word with others. I do it totally different than Garrett does. I mean, me and Garrett are actually kind of similar. I'm very topical when I teach. I'll come up, I'll pray about it. God will give me something, then I build a sermon around it. But I am very, you've been around me enough now to know like this is how I would preach too. I mean, very, very relational, very topical, very laid back, but passionate. That is I feel like my calling. Similar to you said it briefly. I love young adults. Youth, I've told Garrett, if you ever need me in the youth, I would help you, but more of like I want to help Garrett. I want to protect Garrett and Leslie.
That's like why I serve.
As a brotherhood kind of thing. Like, I love that man beyond church. Like, our friendship is way predating church, obviously. I will serve. I've told him that I will serve if you need me, want me, but I'm more there to help serve you. Yeah. More so than kids. Not that I don't love kids and relate to youth group kids, it's especially the older ones. But I feel like my calling is more like either church pastoring kind of thing. I have a long way to go to ever get back to that, and I'm not sure I'll ever overcome my disqualification feeling. But
not with that attitude.
No, exactly. I know exactly. I know. Whether it be like a life group or whatever, like that.
That'd be cool.
21 to 35 range.
You should visit the Griffins. Do
they have a cap? I've talked to Zach about it. They have a cap. I'm a little too old.
Right.
Because theirs goes to like what, late 20s.
I don't know exactly what.
Anyway, but I'm 32 now, so I mean it's like.
They should like if you were
I don't even know if I relate to a 21-year-old fully now. So I mean, because when I was at Walgreens, I had like 18, 19, 20-year-olds working for me. I was like, yeah. Anything y'all are talking about, but maybe more like 25 to 40, probably more my age range. But young adult keeps shifting because we're getting older. But no, I love Jesus, man, and I'm not always a good representation of him. I know that. Each day is a new journey for me to do better, be better. but all I can do is just try to be a light to others. Me and Tyler Linton the other day were talking in our small group about different ways to witness to people. Like, there's just a lot of things that I feel like I want to do. I feel like I need to do and I'm called to do. And I feel like I'm at Faith Center and God's kind of putting the right people around me to help get me into those zones. Like JP will tell you, I'm like a sheep that needs to be herded. I mean,
but so is John and Pastor Jeff. You're a visionary, man. And so you need people around you. I was just talking to Pastor Jeff about this. You got to know what lane you're in and surround yourself with what you need most. Mm-hmm. And it might be personalities that kind of clash with yours because you're so like forward focused. And you're going to have people around you going, well, have you figured this out? Like, have you figured that out? And
that's where JP and Tanner are those guys for me. They're the ones who, you know, if I'm floating on a balloon, they're the one that's bringing an anchor down to my ankle. Not in a bad way. They're just like, hey, let's think about this.
And it's your pros, so you can like, okay.
Yeah. So I take criticism really well, but I also dish it out really well too. I kind of got to take it both, and I'm also always just joking, so you got to kind of take it, you know, as it goes. But that's kind of, you know, not to get too heavy. That's where that's my biggest struggle. That's my biggest issue, and I have a huge issue with. Well, let me rephrase this because I was going to come out wrong. I used to struggle with pornography. Even up into parts of my marriage, and I healed that, and that was a huge part of therapy and talking about that kind of stuff. I have a huge issue with pornography as a whole. Not me struggling with, like, I hate pornography, man. I think it's the biggest killer of people's faith, men specifically. I know women struggle with it too, but men, I've had so many people now I've talked to that have struggled, like, that just kept it so quiet because, like, pornography is such a hidden sin. Nobody really knows you do it if you don't share it. Dude, it just sucks people's souls. Wording probably right. It just steals people's souls away. And you know, I have talked to so many guys about it, and that is one thing I'm actually really passionate about, is like helping people be honest about pornography and breaking free of pornography. Yeah, I think that's one of the most dangerous sins because it's so easy to conceal, and I think it's a gateway. You talk about gateway drugs. Talk about drugs. I think pornography is a gateway drug to so many other worse things. Yeah. We've talked about porn. I'm mostly focused. So I won't belabor it, but like that is something I'm very passionate about. And almost every male I've ever met that's my age or close has had a struggle with it at some point. Yeah. I was teaching one time to young adults, and it was men. And I was like, all right, raise your hand if you struggle with pornography. And a single one raised their hand. I was like, well, you're all liars too. So, you know, sex addicts and liars. You know, and then turned out they almost all universally did. It's just got a chokehold, man. Over men, and I think that's a big issue, something I had struggled with too. So that's just another little tangent I'm very passionate about. Didn't know if I was going to get to talk about it, so there it was. Hate porn, passionate about it. If you have an issue with it,
we could open that book for sure. I mean, there's just so much to dive into with that. I think it was like the first or second podcast we talked about it on here, because my dad, that was one of his struggles before he got saved. And I didn't clarify that he had like been clean of it for like 40 years or whatever. And so my mom made us go do a second podcast to clarify that he wasn't still addicted to pornography. Very just, you know, but has Garrett like talked to you about teaching to the youth?
We've talked about it. We've had a lot of conversations.
Because you'd be like great for like that topic needs to be taught at some point. I know it's an awkward and weird conversation to have, but like I'm sure all those boys struggle or have struggled with it. I mean, to say like a majority of them aren't doing it would be probably shocking to me. You know what I mean?
I mean, I just wouldn't believe it straight up.
I mean, with the phones and the technology that they have, it's like...
Yeah, me and Garrett have talked a lot about things, and, you know, we're talking about some more stuff Friday. I mean,
maybe start with a softer, like a softball.
Yes.
You know?
Softcore.
Yeah.
Softcore topic.
Like, less topical than that, you know?
No, there's a lot of things I'm passionate about, and I think that I think one of the things I really try to do with my friendships when we hang out, or, you know, people just in my sphere of life that I may not be friends with, or, you know, work, whatever, in appropriate ways, is really just break down those taboo barriers, that things people don't talk about that need to be talked about. Or else people are just going to carry these things around forever. Obviously, there's appropriate times, places, gender, how to have conversations, but I think it's very important that people, that's one thing you're never going to have to worry about me, is pulling my punches or wondering what's going on with me or what I'm struggling with. I'll just straight up tell you. Because odds are somebody's either going through it and they need to hear that they're not alone. There's just been so much freedom. When me and my wife were going through all the things that we were going through a few years ago, talking to some of my friends and them hearing me be so transparent about it, and then them being like, hey man, I've struggled with something almost exactly like that. And you could see a weight lifted off them, a weight lifted off me, because I didn't feel like I was alone. I was like, man, how have I messed up my life so bad that I'm struggling with XYZ? And then I'd have another friend be like, I'm struggling with XYZ. And then it's like a boomerang domino effect. Like, oh, I am. And it's just been so freeing. And I've had so many friendships become closer because we've been able to open up and share, but it's like safe. I'm not going to share it with Joe Blow at the bar. It's just like, these are like accountability partners. They're friends, friendships you forged. But there's still some things that you still feel like you just are taboo. And I just really try to break down those barriers and walls, even with people who aren't in that sphere, because I just think that's important. I think people need to know that they have a place to go, and then most important thing is always redirect them to Jesus. I'm not always going to be able to tell you to go pull up Ephesians 4:13, whatever that is, and just hey, that's what you need. But I'm like, hey man, listen, Jesus, here's what I've gone through, here's how Jesus freed me of it or has worked with me, here's some scripture I found helpful. I'm not just going to give somebody roulette. I want to actually give them practical things to help them through that. So I always try to point people back to Jesus. Yeah. When and where I can with that too.
What is one of the big lessons you've learned through marriage, like the relationship advice you'd give to somebody from being in hard times?
Me and my wife could not be totally different people. My wife, Abby, is a freaking saint, man. I'm not just saying that. Like, she is a saint. Everything you're seeing here, total opposite, man. She is the truly most pure person I've ever met. She is, people always say, oh, you're so beautiful inside and out. But no, she is genuinely beautiful inside and out, man. She is just perfect. I do not deserve her. Totally outkicked my coverage with her. However, with that said, I took her, do not take your spouse for granted on either side. That was a huge issue. I took her for granted. I took her loyalty. I took her purity. Well, purity, purity's not the right word.
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah, but like just her pure of heartness for granted.
Yeah.
And expectations. I remember going through premarital counseling, and also get somebody who premarital counsel, they talk real to you. Talk about money, talk about expectations, talk about sex, talk about friendships, talk about
make sure you know how to communicate with one another.
Yes, because our premarital counseling was fine, but it was very surface level. Yeah. But one thing he said that was actually true that I wish I'd done is really communicate your expectations to one another. And like, well, we left, we're going to be happy and married, but we didn't really communicate our expectations. Yeah. So for so many years, you continue to move through life and you just don't talk about things. You don't talk about boom! Yeah. You're 7 years into a marriage and you just have this huge nuclear issues that have built up like tiramisu, and they just explode,
Down to the trash getting taken out. I mean, it's crazy how it blows up, man.
Yep. And then when you've both sat and simmered on things for so long, it's just, you say and do things that hurt the other out of spite. And, so for me, one thing I felt at home is spiritual leadership too. I don't know why. I'll do it everywhere else, but I struggle with it at home for some reason. I don't know if it's like, I feel like it's going to be awkward or whatever. So that's one thing I would definitely say. I'm still trying to work and be better, praying about how to be better.
Why is it awkward? Like, I feel awkward, like leading my family in prayer or little things
go do it with strangers way easier than I can at home. I don't know why. Kind of like that whole Jesus, you're not welcomed in your hometown maybe mentality. Like, I just feel weird about it. I don't know.
I've been better. Like, we try to make sure our kids are praying before they go to bed, but like it's like we'll be out in public and I'm like looking, like, who am I looking around over my shoulder to see if we're praying at our table for Fazoli's? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's a struggle, but I would say that's one thing. Prioritize, however that works, however you need to do it. Get weird, live in that weirdness and that uncomfortability. I shied away from that for a while.
Not taking your wife for granted is one of the most important pieces of advice you could give someone. 100%. So many men do that without even and it doesn't take long. And next thing you know, a year or two down the road, you're sitting there and you're taking it's a little bit of our pride that gets in the way. We want to do what we want to do, and we'll lie to get what we want, and we'll do what we and so it's something that I've struggled with, because like coming out of addiction is like I'm still breaking through some of that.
Right.
That prideful like doing what I want kind of mentality. You cannot have the mentality of your wife has to match everything you do, or her had that mentality and it worked, because when you have a kid or two kids, there's going to be times where you're going to have to do more than the other person. Like, it just is what it, and you do it because you love them.
Yeah. And I'm still learning that. Like, we've been married 10.5 years. I'm still learning how to serve, how to help around the house better. Yeah. I'm the least handy person you'll ever meet. I can't draw a straight line or hammer a nail straight. But I'm still learning. I'm just now learning to do like basic cooking and like laundry in the house. I am not the like old school. I need food on the table when I get home, and I want my dishes clean. I can care less about that. That is not me.
Yeah.
She could make me, or I could pour myself a bowl of crunch berries every night and be happy. Like I am so in that regard laid back.
Yeah.
But in that regard, I guess maybe I just feel like, maybe I don't have to help. And that's not my mentality. I wasn't verbally thinking this. Like maybe I just don't help out around the house. Maybe because that's just my personality. Like I don't need it done, so I don't have to help her. Maybe that's what was. For so long, I didn't do things like that. So I'm trying to be more like that. But it's taken me 10 and a half years to learn that. So if you can just go into an expectation, or in marriage with expectations of, I'm not going to take my wife for granted. I'm going to go out of my way and serve her, have that servant-hearted mindset, save you a ton of issues in the long run. And it's not that I didn't have the anti-mindset of that. I just didn't have that mindset, and it would have saved me a ton of issues.
You have to have it fully in your heart, because like your mind will quickly, your flesh will kick in. And I think advice for people who are like about to get married, when you're going through marriage counseling, you've got to be real. I think I went through the same surface level thing with our marriage counseling. It was Pastor John. He just thought it's Daniel. He's been, I've known Kelly and Yvonne for 100 years, and he's good. And I wasn't good. And I should have told him, look, man, I'm drinking. Like, I have some issues. Like, he would have been like, whoa, hold up.
Yeah.
And so, like, don't be afraid to, like, push the envelope and have those conversations, because I think so many people think they communicate well with their, like, spouse or significant other, and they have no idea what communication is.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
They know how to make them laugh, and they know they love each other, so they figured out this. Dude, communicating with your wife is sitting down and saying when you're uncomfortable, or you like, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, we need to talk about that. No guy likes doing that. Yeah. I don't like doing that.
I'm a little odd. I like to do that sometimes.
Sometimes
I do. I'm like the totally antithesis of most dudes, man. I'm an odd cat.
Like when you're like really uncomfortable, or like just something's bothering you, you're just like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's me. It makes my wife so mad. Everybody that mad. Like, we'll be in the middle of a fight or whatever, and I just want to talk about it. I want to fix the issue. I want to fix it right then, and I want to fix it right now. Or I used to have a really bad temper before I started going to therapy and going to counseling, which that's another thing. Do not be scared of counseling. I'm a Christian counselor specifically. I think it's very important.
100%.
There's a lady at Heartland, works at Heartland. It's called Progressive Wellness. Jenny Disher. She's a freaking saint, man. She's awesome. My dad has sent a lot of people to her. I have some other personal friends that go to her. She's amazing, man. To say she saved our marriage, maybe overdoing it, but man, she definitely gave us the blueprint to help fix it. Jenny's amazing. What she's doing is a true ministry. So go to counseling. Don't be afraid of that, and that's a huge start. But anyway, what were we saying before that? I just had to give Jenny my shout out.
Oh, I was just talking about the communication of.
I had something I was going to say, but it probably was a joke because I felt like I had a smirk in my head. But
you're talking about like how like you like to have the tougher conversations and stuff.
Yeah. So when I had a temper and stuff like that before counseling, that's how.
Yeah.
I would get so mad, say the most hurtful things I could possibly think of to try to win the fight, Then I immediately be like, I'm so sorry, and then move on. Like, I'd be like, hey, let's go.
Oh, no.
I'm like that kind of guy, too. So I'd be like, I'll lose my mind and then be like, all right, yeah, cool, let's move on. It turns out I may have been a little bit of a narcissist. So, I had to work through some of that, too. But, yeah, I want to fix it in the moment. I want to get it over with. I want to get it done. I want to face it. And then I can move on from things instantly. You could cuss me like a dog and say the most hurtful things to me, and I'll move on from it almost immediately. And maybe I told you a part of me died early on.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe I had some insecurities back then. I genuinely don't know. And that I just had to shed all of those off to fit a new thing. I do not take things personally at all. I don't. And it's kind of, I had to face this in counseling, is learning how to love people and let people love me. I just had this, outside of, my mom, my dad, my sister, my wife, just this was before Violet, just do I really love people? Do I really know what love is? And trying to understand how to let people in. I think I just shut people out. I'm so not genuinely just blank. I love life. I love Jesus, but what is love? I had to really understand that and dive into love and what relationships are. And so I think just having a real self-reflection, maybe going to counseling before marriage.
Right.
I think that would help. Couples therapy before you get married, before you after engagement. I think help a lot of marriages, or maybe end some that don't need to be married.
Yeah.
But yeah, not taking for granted counseling. Two of my biggest.
I just feel like I'm like over emotional and I over worry about what people are thinking. Like I almost go like the complete opposite on that one. But like I don't know, it's just like I'll talk to someone and then I'll be like worried about it later. Like and I don't know why I do that, and that's something I've talked to Pastor Jeff about too. Is like sometimes like you just have to be okay. Like and like having a structure of your life of understanding like your family's first. And so whenever it comes to other relationships, like you don't have to put them on the like top level and then worry about it. Like keep it where it is. Yeah. Keep that relationship where it is. Like they're not your wife, they're not your kids. They're down at least a peg. You know what I mean? Right. And that kind of helped me like realize like, oh, I'm like overthinking like every relationship I have in my life.
Yeah.
I grew up with people who were like brothers to me. And then they're basically all gone. You know, I have a couple of them that are living, but they're, you know, hours away.
Yeah, no relation.
And so that was something that everyone understands. Like, you're not going to have your friends forever, but I didn't learn that until I was like 20 something.
Right.
And so now it's like this whole world of like navigating new friendships and forming good brotherhoods. And it's like, I feel like I struggle with that. You know, I'm like, ugh, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe I'm too far the other direction. I just feel like I this always sounds so bad when I say it. Maybe I don't mean it this way. Like, one of my best friends is David Brandon.
Okay.
But we haven't hung out in 3 years.
Yeah.
But he could call me tomorrow, and then we'll be best friends again for 3 years straight. Like, that's just how, it's not personal. Like, my sister moved away. She moves and travels with her husband all the time. They and my nephew, they were just in for Easter. I love seeing her. Mm-hmm. I'm so bad about just when people don't talk to me, I will never talk to them again, and it's not personal.
Yeah.
I am so bad at initiating. And obviously that bleeds into my marriage too. And I don't initiate some things enough, you know? Yeah. And that's the same with friendships or relationships. You know, and truthfully, circling back spiritually, I have to initiate, obviously, spiritually if I want to grow. Yeah. In the same way, me and my sister had to have a come to Jesus moment a few years ago. She's like, I don't feel like you, and I don't know if she didn't say love me, but like, care about me, you're not as close, like you never talk to me. We'll go a year without talking. She's just a year and a half younger than me. But when she moved away, I didn't talk to her for like a year because she didn't reach out to me and reach out to her. So it's just like, oh, okay. But it wasn't personal. And I do that sometimes. I use David as an example. Like, I truly love that man. I'd do anything for him, but I haven't reached out to him. He hasn't reached out to me, but we do that. We just go through phases. We'll see each other and then we'll hang out every 3 days a week. You know, it just is what it is.
That's my problem, is reaching out. And, like, it's not really the people I don't see as much. Like, I mentioned those guys just because it's, like, that's where I was. But now that I don't see them all the time, like, I still love it. If we talked if he called me up today, my buddy David in Missouri, we are bros.
We both got a buddy, David.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the man. He was literally, like, him and Zach were literally, like, tied for best friend. Like, I never had that in my life. But Zach was my first friend, so that's why he was, like, the best friend, best man. And David, like, I chose Zach because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. But David was probably closer to me in some ways. We just had a more natural... You know, with Zach, we were friends from 10 on, so we made a lot of hurtful mistakes with one another. Right. I met David a little bit older, and we never had any, like, issues ever. We never fought. Like, if we ever fought, I don't remember it. Yeah. So it's just a different relationship. But it's like with the people I have relationship with now where I start overanalyzing.
Yeah, everybody needs one of those friends you wrestled over girls with in third grade.
I would get jealous of David a little bit. Like, I dated a girl, and they were close, and then when we broke up and my heart was broken, they were still close. I'm like, oh,
that's how me and Tanner were. I mean, he's that guy for me. But I mean, we've stayed friends throughout the years. But no, I think having a support group is good. I think everybody needs friends. You don't want to be isolated. You don't want to be alone because then you internalize things and you can't talk about it. So, you know, Christ obviously is the center. Then you need to focus on your spouse. Don't take it for granted. Lead spiritually best you can. Then have a community of people who love you, care about you, can be open with. I think those are your three biggest things. You can do those three things in some capacity. You'll have a key, healthier marriage.
Awesome, man. Are you doing good on time? What time do you got to get out of here?
Whenever. I don't care.
You don't care?
No, I can sit here. It makes JP so mad. He wants our podcast, especially like Mostly Focused, to be like an hour 20. One of my buddies was listening to, or one of the guys I worked with was like, I was listening to one of your podcasts. It's 2 hours and 45 minutes long. I was like, yeah, JP got really mad on that one. He's like,
no, that's exciting, man.
See, I could sit here. That's why I don't do solo podcasts. More power. Like, I couldn't do what you do solo.
Well, I only do like 35, 45.
It would be a 24-hour live feed. I just couldn't stop. And like, because we've talked about doing a Mostly Focused family of podcast. Mostly focus. We have mostly film. We've talked about doing mostly marriage. We've talked about doing where we just do marital conversations with the different spouses that come on.
Yeah.
Specifically focusing on marriage testimonies and stuff like that. We've talked about doing mostly Disney.
You could do all that under the mostly focused umbrella.
That's what we've talked about doing. But the problem is, JP does such an amazing job with all the production, the sound. He does so good with it. It's my responsibility to post it. I hate social media.
Yeah.
But in order to grow, you got to post things.
Yeah.
So I got to figure out how to get a hold of all that and stuff. But anyway, also shout out to JP. Y'all don't know what he does at church. That man, I guess since I brought it up, production, that man is the engine that runs Faith Center. I mean, Jesus and the Holy Spirit, yes. But you would not have a good church experience if JP wasn't behind running the sounds. Not sound, that's simplified. Dude does everything.
He's dialed in.
We had 2 services this Easter, because this post on Friday, right?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm going to try my best.
Well, so like a week ago, let's just say a week ago was Easter. And I was at the first service at 9, and I asked JP, I was like, man, what time did you get here? He's like, 6:15. And I was like, and you running on energy drinks, coffee right now? Bump of cocaine? Obviously not cocaine, but it's a joke.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, running on pure anxiety. And I was like, you know what? That tracks. That dude does so much from it's just amazing what he does. Heartbeat of the church. That's it.
With a baby.
Yeah. No, like a little baby too.
Yeah, a little baby.
It's amazing. That's a full-time gig, man. It's not a full-time gig, but what he does it's amazing.
He I don't know him super well. I went to school with his sister for a little bit. I went to CCA for
I didn't know you went
my
to CCA.
Elementary, just through elementary school.
Okay. Where'd you go?
You had the high school experience. I had the middle school experience.
Oh, okay.
Lone Oak until I was first graduating class out of McCracken.
Oh, okay. Did you know how old are you?
29.
Did you know Christian Park? He's from the internet in jail in high school.
I am
tall, blonde-headed kid.
I'd probably recognize his face if he went to Lone Oak.
And probably find his mugshots. He was a good friend of mine for a long time, and he's just gotten out of jail so much. I have no clue where he landed, but he went to Lone Oak. He's like the only Lone Oak person I know is a dude.
But JP's always super encouraging. Like, even if I don't feel like I'm playing good, like during practice, he's like, "Hey man, you sounded good today," and it seems like it feels genuine every time he says it. Like he just comes out so like
he won't say it if he doesn't.
Like he's not like gonna fluff you up. And I do really that's that one little, "Hey man, you sounded great tonight." That is huge sometimes. Like that's all I need. Like, oh, thanks man. Like I appreciate it.
See, I'm just the worst. I tell Garrett he can do better. Like, dude, if he didn't have. I always hope one Sunday morning when he's preaching, he forgets to turn off his notifications or doesn't silence.
Oh,
his phone.
yeah.
All the service is me and JP and Tanner and Zach just roasting Garrett the whole time. That's what friendship is right there.
Dude, that Sunday he taught on the 5,000, feeding the 5,000. That was the most unique. I've never heard it taught like that, I don't think. And I've been going to church my whole life. I thought it was really...
It was really good.
Really good.
I'll give you your flowers. You're a really good preacher. Really good preacher, teacher. That's it. I won't say it again. Do better. Be better. No, he's great. I'll say it. I'll share. I was gonna say something. I'll leave it. I'm not gonna say it. I'm not gonna expose anything like that. I'll be polite.
What is like what is it like now that you have a daughter?
Yep.
How much more do you respect what your father did as a dad?
I got asked that. Well, I'm not to say a lot, but I feel like I got asked that a few times early on. Our daughter's 3.5 now. At first, didn't really change. I mean, you're doing a lot more, but I feel like my mindset hadn't changed much. I feel like it took me like a full year plus to just really soak into the fact that I was a parent and the gravity of that and the responsibility and the weight of that. I don't know if that's normal to take that long. I mean, I loved her out the game, immediately smitten in love, but like just the gravity of being a parent.
I feel that.
So that specific feeling and that like realization that didn't really kick in until Violet was like talking, walking. And then it's just like something clicked to me. I was like, man, my parents are amazing. And what they did and how they stayed so consistent for so long, despite my best efforts to throw a wrench into things, especially as I got older, but like my parents are a beacon of consistency, man. And that is, especially in one place, is just amazing. So the gravity of that has dawned on me even more. Like, if I can be a fraction of what my father and my mother were for me to my daughter, I've done well. There's no way I could ever replicate how amazing my parents were to me. And It's so difficult talking about church sometimes, because a lot of people, like me leaving to go to a different church, is it was a very hard choice. Yeah. And it was very hard conversation with my family, obviously too. But man, I couldn't recommend anybody enough to go to my dad's church, and like what they've done for me and what they do for their people. And my dad is the best of the best, man. I mean, John, my dad, and I don't say this because that's my pastor and my dad's my dad. They're two of the best pastors I've ever heard in my entire life. And that's like growing up with I've heard a trillion different pastors. They're both just absolutely incredible. But yeah, that realization really kicked in the older Violet's got. And just like, man, he did such a good job with me. He was so patient with me, so kind to me, him and my mom. And I'm like tempted to lose my mind. She's 3.5. It's like, do what I need you to do.
Dude, 3.5 is no joke, but they're going to get to be teenagers one day.
Oh, gosh, man. They talk about reap what you sow, man. I just hope the Lord comes back before then. Like, I can't do that. You're going to catch me, especially the way the world's turning. I'm going to end up going to prison for something. Like, someone's going to lay their hands on Violet or say something out of pocket. And,
It's so awesome because, like, we love our parents so much. I love my dad and my mom so much. And getting to see them in this next season too, and like how much my children like love them, like they're part of their world, and it's like, wow, it's just really come full circle. And just every little thing your kid does for the first time, you're like, wow, like, this is so crazy. Like, it's so wild. They're forming their own little personalities. Their sentences slowly but surely get a little bit longer, a little bit more coherent. You can actually understand what they're telling you. And it's just wild, man. It's
Which that tells me everything I need to know about Jesus, man. With him, kids,
we're babies.
Jesus was always known to have kids come around him, and he always refers to us as being like little children. You have to be an acquired kind of person and taste for little kids to want to be with you and for you to want to be with children. And that's as I've gotten older, especially having a kid, that image of Jesus being a father to children, like, and that being his heart, has really resonated with me as a dad. And it's really kind of changed and softened my stance on some parts of Jesus. I still very much subscribe to the whole Step Brothers. I think it's Step Brothers. The movie Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, where John C. Reilly's talking about, I like to picture my Jesus in a tuxedo, hanging out, and,
That might be Talladega Nights.
Yeah, it's one of those two.
Where he describes Jesus as a baby. One of them describes him as a baby, and the other one is...
I know they do the baby. Whichever movie it is. When you're talking about, I like to think of my Jesus having a good time in a tuxedo.
No, that might be Step Brothers.
Smashing Mountain Dew. I know that's a joke, but I also think that's God. I think that's Jesus. I think he's fun and a father and loving and welcoming and caring. It's just having a kid and growing up and having the testimonies that you and I have, and like finding the humor in things, man. Like, Jesus is awesome. And being a dad is awesome. And looking at hindsight, my parents being grandparents, my life at 32 is so much more fulfilling and rich than it's been at any other point in my life. And there's been plenty other times in my life where I'm like, how does it get better than this? How can my life feel more full than this? And I keep finding new milestones to track that in. So, yeah, it's awesome.
Not to talk about Garrett 500 times, but he did just do this awesome little teaching on Facebook about Jesus having compassion. And in Mark, it's like used like so consistently before every miracle. Like, Jesus had compassion over them. Jesus had compassion over them. And like, as a father, if we lead with that compassionate heart, it really does affect the way we parent, because sometimes we want to, like, it's so, I mentioned it earlier, but that leading with love and compassion, it's so important, because you're not checking off any boxes. You're just loving your kid because you want to love your kid, and they're going to love you for it. You know what I mean? And it's one of those lessons that your flesh really does want to battle you with. It makes you want to like get angry and feel other feelings, whenever love should be the center of like how we parent our kids.
Yeah. See, like I said it a bunch. It's easier said than done, but I try to live in that space as much as I can now, and not take marriage for granted, my children for granted, because I blinked, she's 3.5. I mean, it's just
it's
like
crazy.
It happens so quick. Everybody's like, oh, when you turn 18, your life's gonna go quick. When you turn 21, you get married. None of that ever really happened. I feel like my life moved quicker until I had a kid.
Yeah.
Having Violet, my life has been like, woo, we're 3.5 years in. Like, whoa, that was fast.
Yeah.
So it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. My salvation, my marriage, being a dad, man, it's incredible. And honestly, coming full circle and like restoring relationships with my family and stuff has been really neat to go back and do that too. So
it's awesome, man.
Yeah.
You got anything else for everybody before we hop off here?
I don't think so. I told you beforehand. I came in here, fully. I didn't know how I was going to be. Should I do notes? Should I prepare something to say? Do I need, because hence mostly focused, the origin of the name is because of me, because I can't stay focused on things for too long, to JP's bane. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go on Daniel's podcast. I'm going to have a structure. I'm going to have notes. I'm going to be ready and prepared. And I started today. And then I made it about 2 bullet points in and my ADD kicked in. I was like, nah, I know my testimony. I won't do that. So, I don't have any notes. I do have a scripture that has been very integral to me, my faith, something I look at daily.
Yeah. So just so you know, like, I don't know you per se.
Right, yeah.
I've only heard you on the podcast. This is really the only time I've heard your voice other than like a, hey, how are you?
Yeah.
So it was kind of harder for me to come up with, I came up with like 5 or 6 questions, nothing crazy. And I really do appreciate the more like free flow of tonight. It's nice.
I do too. This is why I don't do solo podcasts, because I can talk to people forever, man. And you should try it. You're a great conversationalist too. So kudos to you. Because I've seen a handful of yours, and you never know how different personalities are going to be on a show. So
sometimes it's awkward. Sometimes I'm bad. Sometimes it's not the guest's fault.
I never want to derail somebody, but I feel like we were a good little pair tonight.
Yeah,
so kudos to us, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course.
So I'll end it with Romans 4. This is the NIV 4:18. This has been a verse that has been very integral to me in my life, to different parts, but specifically of late. And it is, against all hope, Abraham in hope believed, and so became the father of many nations, just as it had been said to him. So shall your offspring be. But really, that against all hope, Abraham in hope believed, and so became. That cut it off right there. Against all hope, Abraham hoped, and so became. Talking about my struggles with disqualifications, my struggle with everything I talk about, why I can't get past or jump into different things in ministry, or struggle to get things off the ground. I'm always reminded that compared to what like Abraham was going through, against all hope, everything stacked against him, he had hope, and so he became the father of all these nations. So that to me is one of the most encouraging little passages of scripture. That despite what I'm going through, I still have hope in Jesus. There's still hope for tomorrow. And I really cling on to that. And if I can finally grab onto that and fully invest in it, I will therefore also become. So that's just kind of what I wanted to end on there, because that's like my mantra for life. So.
It's so hard to see where we're at when we're in it, when we're in the very middle of a situation. But God is doing it as we speak. And you are willing, even if we do stumble and if we do fall, you are in the middle of your like ministry beginning. You don't even know it. It might just butt out of nowhere. But I'm telling you, man, like you were saying earlier, God putting you in a specific place around specific people, He's growing you. And if you look back 2-3 years ago and you see where you are now, you're gonna say, okay, there has been a lot of change.
Yeah.
And just do that a couple years from now, and it's gonna be the same thing. Garrett says this to me sometimes, and we'll all sit around sometime, no telling how long in the future, and go, wow, look at what God did.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited. I can't wait to hear it.
About Garrett all the time. Garrett's got the fresh testimony still. He's still riding his meth.
7 years of sobriety.
Yeah, I know. He's still riding his meth testimony, but I like to bring him down a notch and say
like 1 in 5 people get sober from meth whenever they start. It's like super like.
Well, Garrett still has time. I'm just kidding. But did you know that he turned himself in with meth in his pocket?
I didn't know that. I've heard the story. I didn't know. I don't know if I remember there was meth in his pocket.
Yeah, dude turned himself in and had meth on him.
Well, at least he didn't like save it for later when he got home.
No, that's true. He didn't. Yeah, he could have smuggled it in. I guess.
I mean, he was wanted, so
that's true.
Come as you are, kind of situation. Yeah. Did they give him an extra charge or something?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That makes sense.
That's it. I always like to bring that up anytime I get a chance to. It's like bring Garrett down a notch. Garrett's great, but he also turned himself in with meth on his person.
Yeah. Well, we love you, Garrett.
Love you. But no, yeah, Garrett's great. He's the best. I always tell people when we go to life groups, if you want stories on Garrett, I was talking to Chris Hidalgo the other night. This will be a last story. I'll leave on a story. So, 2 things. Me and Garrett bonded. I didn't know him. We both went to the bathroom like once or twice together at the end of 4th period. Like just happened to be going at the same time, and we do dueling poops. We just sit there and poop next to each other and make So for a whole freshman year, every day, fourth block, we just made it a thing. We'd go poop next to each other, fourth block, and so a friendship was blossomed. But Garrett, did you know? You knew he played college baseball, but did you know that he could throw a dodgeball really fast and really hard?
That makes sense.
Okay, he could throw a dodgeball so hard. Like you always wanted to be on his team, but you still weren't safe because he could be like from me to you and still miss you because he just had so much power but no aim. But he broke a girl's or a guy's collarbone, shattered their collarbone with a dodgeball.
The dodgeball?
Yeah, like from a distance, not like from up
Dang,
close.
they were the legit dodgeballs then.
Well, no, just like a standard dodgeball. I don't know. I mean,
that thing aired up or something.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still. I mean,
That's crazy.
He gave a couple concussions with a dodgeball.
Garrett.
Someone tried to catch a ball, shattered their wrist.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
Dude, they needed to soften up those dodgeballs.
Dude,
You were throwing
they weren't
rocks.
that hard. Garrett just. I mean, he could throw a fastball, baseball, like 90 miles per hour. He was chucking those dodgeballs probably 60 miles an hour.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that from dodgeball.
Yeah, I was telling Chris the other day, I was like, so if y'all go to Mexico, make sure there's no dodgeballs. Don't let him throw them at the Mexican kids out there. He will get stuck in Mexico for some sort of hate crime. He won't be able to get back out. So same thing with youth group. Don't let him throw them at the kids.
That's crazy.
So.
Shattered someone's wrist.
Yep, shattered a wrist, shattered a collarbone. There's a girl. I think it was the girl he shattered a girl's collarbone. So
I don't know if that might be more impressive than throwing at 92 miles an hour.
Think it is.
I mean, that is crazy. I've never heard of someone getting that hurt from a dodgeball.
Yeah,
that's wild.
It's wild. So that's just a little fun tidbit for Garrett. I'll try to come up with more tidbits and you can share them. That's what you should do. You should add a Garrett tidbit to the end of your podcast.
There we go.
I'll send.
You'll send them in.
I'll send them in.
All right.
Yeah, just Garrett mail.
I have to have you guys come on together sometime.
We could do what you wish for.
Yeah, we could do that. We'd have to figure out a topic though, because I know you like topics.
Yeah. Garrett.
That's what I usually do with the
Garrett. It's funny. I know I keep saying we're going to close. This is what makes JP so mad. We'll be like, I'm closing, and then I'll just go off on 10 more tangents.
The audience loves it.
Yeah, Garrett. I got to be careful. Garrett is in a position of ministry. So, it's important for people to have friends that predate ministry, and in ministry. So Garrett's in a unique situation. I am not on staff. I just go to the church. You know what I mean? Right. My wife does serve, but my wife is a saint. She's never going to say anything controversial because she doesn't have a controversial bone in her body, and that is the best thing about her. She's amazing. She's never done anything wrong in her life. She's amazing. Now, that's a testimony in and of itself. But anyway, Garrett, I feel bad for him sometimes because in these settings, I feel like he has to be more mindful of what he says.
Yeah,
because,
dude. But off air, he is. I mean, and
he's the most
real and raw. He'll tell you. I mean, he's told me stuff like you don't just tell everybody. Yeah. He's real and raw, and I think he does come as genuine as he can into y'all's podcast.
Oh yeah, I mean, he has no choice. If I feel like he's holding back on our podcast, I'm gonna go like grab his butt or something. He's gonna loosen up. He's not. Zach's still learning how to be comfortable on the show too. I mean, like. It's podcasting. It's like Tanner's fear. I mean, you
guys make it uncomfortable sometimes. I'll be honest as a listener.
Oh yeah,
I'll be uncomfortable.
I try. I mean, I just don't shy away from those moments, man. I just can't. It's not that I'm even trying to sit in it. Life's too short. Things need to be talked about. And maybe I just need to work on boundaries sometimes, and also have for sure undiagnosed ADD. But
that's all part of it, man.
It's part of the Jonathan experience, and you got it tonight. You got it. I didn't prep. I didn't come focused. I just came mostly focused. So.
Oh, man. Look at that tie-in. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it's cool to get to know you. And maybe we'll do it again. We'll figure something out.
Yeah,
but
whatever, man.
You know what? I would like to see if your dad would come on.
Sure he would. He's been online, and you're a much safer audience than me. He's my dad, and I still... Because I was talking to Garrett about, like, hey, Daniel asked me to be on his show. How should I act? And he's like, well... You can be yourself, but maybe act like you're around your dad. And I was like, and he goes, wait, your dad was on the podcast a couple times. Maybe don't do that either. I was like, I'm just gonna go in full tilt.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm inappropriate. I just don't.
You weren't inappropriate.
I don't have a filter. That's
other than the sucking comment. I think you were pretty clean.
And if you wouldn't have brought it back up, people would have missed it. And see, that's not even unclean. It's an innuendo.
You're talking about some dirty movies. It's okay.
You ass.
I was naming them too. It's all right.
Superbad's an objectively great movie. Okay, it's hilarious. Anyway, no. You said PG at the beginning. What I said is an innuendo. That's a PG.
I'm not going to push back on what you like watch and listen to. That's not for me to do.
That was my dad's job.
That's right.
Still to this day.
That's right.
And I listen and watch mostly clean stuff. Mostly clean. There we
The
go.
biggest change for me was the kids, and I still like.
Oh yeah, Violet's I'm very picky about what she.
And I remember we went and saw Bert Kreischer a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, and so I know all the dirty comics. I mean, and he's not like the dirtiest, but he's definitely not like the cleanest either. No. He's drinking shirt off and everything.
He doesn't drink anymore though.
He says that, and then he goes back to drinking. Okay. He's kind of one of those guys. I listened to the Joe Rogan Experience. I listened to some of his podcast, and anyways, it doesn't matter. I was in the stadium watching this guy glorify drinking, and I was like, oh, I got it. I can't do this anymore. Yeah. And with the kids, it's like, and I shouldn't have to wait to go to bed to watch something and feel comfortable. That should make me feel a little like, maybe I shouldn't be watching this, because some things are okay. Some things are on that PG line but man, dude, anything anymore, most of the stuff on Netflix, it's like R. See, like no
my
joke.
biggest issue, and this is a totally different topic, I don't have a problem with like violence, especially like war movies and stuff. I mean, I don't have a problem with violence. I don't have a problem with most. Like, I hate GD. But
there's so much of it.
Yeah, there's so much of it. Like right now, most of the film we're doing Leonardo DiCaprio versus Tom Cruise. So we just watched Wolf of Wall Street, which is filmmaking. It's a masterpiece film. Content wise, bro, it's abhorrent. There's like 1,000 F-bombs in there. I don't mind language. It doesn't offend me. I'm not going to use it, but it doesn't offend me. But I was like, oh, it's a ton. But my biggest thing is the nudity and the sex, bro. It's like,
it's in everything.
Especially like every dude struggles with lust. Like, I don't want those images planted in my mind. Like, I was a huge Game of Thrones fan, but towards the end of it, I was like, I was invested in the show. I needed to finish it. I was like, I'm tired of all the sex in the show. So that's kind of like my break point now is nudity. Yeah. Obviously, I'm not gonna let Violet watch Saving Private Ryan, but I still love Saving Private Ryan.
It'd be cool to talk about like the culture of movies and stuff. I don't know much about it.
Oh, you want to talk? I could do a faith-based movie podcast and the pros and cons.
That'd be cool. Or just like in like the like secular side of things and like how crazy it's gotten.
Let me know. I'd gladly do that. I'm very passionate about it though, so.
Yeah, it's cool. I'll let you run it because I don't know much about it.
Angel Studios is who made King of Kings. They have about 6 or 7 movies coming out that are actually, I'm cautiously optimistic.
I remember the old school like Flywheel. You ever seen that?
Awful.
Oh, it's so good.
No, it's one of the
heartfelt.
Worst. I could on my iPhone make a better film. Than
Fireproof. That's good.
Awful. Terrible.
So heartfelt. Good message.
Yes, absolutely.
Courageous.
Yeah, all of those are great.
If you're talking about the film itself, like,
yes,
I get what you're saying.
Script,
the acting is bad.
They're so bad, and that's a movie. That's what makes a movie. That's what makes. I'm not like The Chosen. Great.
Yeah.
Great all around.
Right.
But that whole Flywheel, Facing the Giants, Courageous, Fireproof, War Room.
They were doing the best with what they had.
No. They just shouldn't be making those movies. So it turns people off. It's good for. Well, no offense, because you kind of like them, but they're good for boomers.
Okay.
They're good for boomers.
Okay.
They're boomer
I'm a boomer.
Films, man.
No, I'm not a boomer, but
they're just not good.
I haven't seen them in like forever, so I was younger.
I know you watch it every night when you go to bed.
Yeah,
it's fine.
Dude.
No, Angel Studios.
Dude, whenever the guy's in the back of the cop car and Courageous, and he's like Snake King, that's funny, right? They had like, some comedy.
I've never seen it.
You never seen
I've
Courageous?
seen the trailer, and that was enough for me never to watch it.
Wow, it's got some sad scenes in it.
The whole movie's a sad scene because it's so bad. So no, thank you. I'm glad it glorifies Jesus, and like I said, God. This is the exact good analogy. We'll close with this because I'm going to keep you until 10 o'clock.
Okay.
When God used the modern equivalent of God using a donkey to talk is these movies.
Oh no,
that's the equivalent of most Christian films. So
you're just too much of a. You're too hard on it. Too hard nosed on it.
It doesn't all have to be an Oscar-winning film, but there needs to be some decent acting.
Yeah, suspend some disbelief. Like let them be bad a little bit. No? Okay.
No. I can't do it. I can't do it.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next time.
See ya.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for checking out the WBF podcast, or as it's called, Walk by Faith. I think testimonies are so important. It gives us power over the enemy, and I really hope that these encourage you and bless you. And if you like the episode, please just share it with your friends and family. That's the biggest way you can support. Like and subscribe on the Spotify page or wherever you're watching. If you want to know about giving, just click the link below. But the biggest thing you can do is share this with somebody else, because you never know which testimony is going to touch somebody in your life. So I hope to see you guys next time, and thank you again.